All right, let's get right into it. For decades, this has been a war fought in the dark, a conflict of spies, sanctions, and cyber attacks. But what happens when that shadow war finally bursts into the open? We're going to break down the full 70-year history that led to the US and Iran finally coming to blows.
So picture this. It's April 2026, and the whole world is holding its breath. After all these years of proxy fights and covert ops, the long-simmering conflict has finally boiled over into a full-blown conventional war. And the fallout, well, it's immediate, and it's hitting everyone.
And here's a taste of what that means. Iran has just blockaded the Strait of Hormuz, just the single most important choke point for oil on the entire planet. Suddenly, a fifth of the world's oil supply is just stuck. Markets are absolutely tanking, and the price you pay for gas has gone through the roof, literally overnight.
So you have to ask, right? How on earth did we get here? Because a crisis this big doesn't just happen. To really understand the fire that's burning in 2026, we have to go way back to the original spark in 1953. This is ground zero, and it's not about religion. Not really. It's about oil. The year is 1953, and something's about to happen that will poison the relationship between these two nations for generations to come.
And right in the middle of it all is this guy, Mohammad Mossadegh. Now, in Iran, he was a national hero, a democratically elected leader, Times Person of the Year, who made a pretty simple argument. Iran's oil should belong to the Iranian people, not some British company. But in the West, at the absolute height of the Cold War, he was seen as a major threat, a guy messing with corporate profits who just might be getting a little too friendly with the Soviets.
And that fear, that perception, led to this, Operation Ajax. And this was a huge deal. The very first time the CIA secretly overthrew a foreign government. An agent named Kermit Roosevelt, Teddy's grandson, was sent in with actual suitcases full of cash. They bought off newspapers to print lies, hired thugs to start riots, and just like that, they crushed a democracy to put the Shah back on the throne as an all-powerful king.
So you can see where this is going. The 1953 coup didn't solve anything. All it did was plant this deep seed of resentment. And about 25 years later, that seed would explode into a violent revolution and a brutal, relentless cycle of payback.
For those next 2.5 decades, with the Shah in charge, Iran was one of America's best friends in the region. He spent billions on top-of-the-line American weapons. In fact, Iran was the only other country in the world allowed to buy the legendary F-14 Tomcat. But underneath all that military hardware and Western polish, the Shah's secret police, the Savak, was running a campaign of terror against its own people. It was a total pressure cooker. And in 1979, that pressure cooker exploded. The revolution wasn't just about getting rid of the Shah, it was about payback against his American supporters. And that led directly to the 444-day hostage crisis, an event that left a deep, deep scar on the American psyche. The U.S. tried to respond with a rescue mission, Operation Eagle Claw, which ended in a fiery, humiliating disaster. And the cycle just kept going into the 80s with the Tanker War, where the U.S. and Iranian navies fought the biggest naval surface battle America had seen since World War II. It was just action, reaction, tit for tat, over and over again. Okay, so fast forward to the 21st century. The war evolves. It moves out of the deserts and off the seas and into a new battlefield you can't even see, cyberspace. The mission was the same, cripple your enemy, but the weapons were now just lines of code.
Which brings us to Stuxnet, and this thing was an absolute game changer. It wasn't a virus, it was a digital missile. A joint U.S.-Israeli project designed to physically wreck Iran's nuclear program. It would sneak into the system, find the centrifuges, and make them spin so fast they'd tear themselves apart. And get this, the whole time, it was sending a signal to the Iranian engineers' screens that said, "Don't worry, everything is fine." It was sabotage on a whole new level.
And if you thought Stuxnet was wild, it was really just the opening act. The U.S. had an even bigger plan on the books, codenamed Nitro Zeus, and its goal? To shut down Iran. The whole country, the power grid, the water supply, all communications, everything. To bring a nation of 80 million people to a dead stop using nothing but a keyboard. No bombs, no bullets. So, that brings us back to where we started. You see how all the pieces connect now? Decades of coups, revenge, and now cyber warfare. It was all building up to this. The moment the shadow war could no longer stay in the shadows.
So what was the final trigger, the last push? In January 2026,
Iran crosses the one red line that could never be crossed. It gets weapons-grade uranium. The American response is immediate and massive. Operation Nightfall isn't just a strike, it's an attempt to decapitate the regime. B-2 stealth bombers drop 30,000-pound bunker busters on their command centers. And Iran's only move left is to retaliate by trying to shut down the world's economy.
And here's where history gets really chilling. Remember Operation Ajax back in '53? That CIA tactic of paying agents to stir up chaos and create a pretext? Well, the source dossier we're looking at says that some analysts believe that's exactly what happened again during the massive protests right before the war began. The same playbook, just dusted off 70 years later.
So where does all this leave us right now in April of 2026? Well, it leaves us with a brutal, bloody stalemate and an internet buzzing with theories and speculation about what's really going on behind the scenes.
The reality on the ground is just grim. The U.S. owns the sky, no question, but Iran's Revolutionary Guard has basically vanished into the mountains to fight a long, drawn-out guerrilla war. At the same time, their proxies are hitting targets all over the globe. And the big fear now is this just another forever war?
And, like with any war these days, the information battlefield online is just as intense. The source dossier points out a few of the fringe theories making the rounds. You've got some people claiming this isn't about nukes at all, but about grabbing Iran's lithium deposits for electric cars. Others whisper that the supreme leader's death wasn't real, that it was staged to let a new secret government take over. There's even a wild one about a rogue U.S. military AI that started the whole thing on its own. Now, these are totally unproven, but they show you just how messy the narrative has become.
Which leaves us with one final haunting question. From the coup in '53 to the open war of 2026, this whole story has been one of action and reaction, betrayal and revenge. It's a cycle that's just been repeating itself for generations. So after all this time and all this conflict, is there any way to break it? Or is this a war that's just destined to go on